a lot of developments on the foreign policy, on the military front. I want to bring in retired Naval Intelligence Commander Dr. Paul Chabot, who is joining us now via Zoom. Dr. Chabot, good to see you as always. Thanks for being here.
My pleasure, Aaron. Great to be with you and your viewers today.
And I do want to start with Cuba because a lot of people might not necessarily know what's going on there because Iran has really dominated the headlines and with good reason. But there's been some tensions kind of boiling under the surface there as well.
Yeah, so Cuba, 90 miles off the coast of Florida. Many older generation, my generation a bit older, will recall the history stories or the real life stories of the Cuban Missile Crisis. We are nowhere near that level of conflict, but we are at a place where Cuba has been on a degrading path for decades. They are really right now facing systematic collapse economically. On average, their residents are lucky if they're getting 2 to 3 hours of electricity per day. They are largely out of oil. They got one tanker that came in from Russia a few weeks ago. And at the same time, China and Russia, which are allied with Cuba, are watching this very closely. The US obviously has been targeting Cuba, not physically, but virtually, if you will, for some potential change. Secretary of State Marco Rubio, as you know, has family from there. He was from Florida, and now as the Secretary of State, he has put Cuba front and center. What's interesting is you watch what's happening with Cuba, a few very critical sort of military-ish related incidents. Number one, we just sent the Nimitz carrier to that region. It's the oldest carrier in our fleet to have a presence. And number two, the US issued a warrant for the arrest of Raul Castro, who's the brother of the late Fidel Castro. The warrant is for shooting down 2 planes in 1996. So there is some movement towards Cuba, but I believe it will be diplomatic and military muscle will just more or less be bluster to help potentially bring some change in Cuba as things are not looking good there today or this week or this month or this year for that matter.
Yeah, because we'd heard within the last couple of weeks or months, President Trump saying that there could be a possible, quote, friendly takeover of Cuba, barring certain conditions being met. So like we were both saying here, Dr. Chabot, this has kind of been bubbling under the surface for a little bit. What would you say that you're watching for as the next few days play out here?
Yep. So Cuba is a communist nation, much like China and Russia. So they have the Communist Party of Cuba. Their president is a gentleman by the name of Miguel Diaz-Canel. He really considers Raul Castro, who now has a warrant out for his arrest by U.S. authorities, their president, Miguel Diaz, just in the last 24 hours, called Raul Castro a statesman and a guerrilla fighter. So that tells us that there is absolute resistance from the current president, and they've also put out notice to their citizens in many ways to sort of prepare for war or prepare for arms. At the same time, Cuba is really in no place to provide much of a defense against the United States. They have a population of about 11 million, and about 200,000 of their folks are escaping to the United States and other countries every single year. So this will not be a major military conflict. I think this will be a slow boil for potential change. I would not be surprised if the CIA is not already operating behind the scenes in negotiating with civilians in Cuba as well.
Let's talk about Iran for a little bit because President Trump said that he's holding off for the time being on military strikes, because serious negotiations were happening right now, and we've seen over the last couple of weeks how those have kind of fizzled. Where do you see things going there? And again, obviously, we know with this war especially, things have been really hard to predict.
Yeah, they are. I have been much more pessimistic on Iran in the last few weeks, just based on the back and forth. Watching Iran and their leaders get more hardened against the United States, they sort of feel like they might be able to drag this out and pull public perception more towards their end as they see challenges within the U.S. politically. What we do know as of today is that both Pakistan and Qatar are sending mediators to Tehran in Iran to have further discussions. And as you said earlier at the beginning, Rubio said that he does see progress. Now, remember, at the same time, there are some absolute no-goes. Number one is, as Rubio has said, that tolls are illegal, and that's what we do not want to see in the international straits. And we want to see a 20-year moratorium on uranium enrichment in Iran, and they have rejected that as well. At the same time, the U.S. blockade remains in place and continues to turn away vessels coming to or from Iran, and did do a boarding just a few days ago and was successful in that boarding and having that vessel transit to a different location.
Yeah, and just to that point as well, there's a couple of really hard lines in the sand, and you mentioned the Strait of Hormuz, obviously, the nuclear program as well is a
Yeah.
huge sticking point at this point as well. I'm curious to see what any possible compromise could look like with that.
Yeah, so the challenge is defining. I think what the White House needs to do a better job on is communicating this to all of us. There is a difference between nuclear energy enrichment, which is about 3 to 5%, compared to weapon grade enrichment, which is at 90%. Just before the United States and Israel attacked Iran, Iran acknowledged that they were at 60% enrichment, obviously well above what is needed for energy. And you can go from 60 to 90% in a matter of weeks. I think that was a major tripwire that led to this war. But I also feel that Trump has been very direct recently to Iran, saying 20-year blockage on enrichment uranium, obviously weapon grade, is the bottom line, including no money to proxies, the four sort of terror networks around the Middle East that Iran funds, and then opening up the strait. International law is very clear. When a nation borders a strait like the Strait of Hormuz, 21 miles, international law says that no country can claim territory over that. It needs to remain open for commerce of the seas.
Retired Naval Intelligence Commander Dr. Paul Chabot, we really appreciate you taking the time, as always, in breaking down both complicated situations. Have a good weekend. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks, Aaron. You as well. Take care.
4:15 right now.